Jamie Santo's nose twitched as he guided his cleaning drone through Section 7 of the Galactic Council station. Something about the air felt wrong. Not the usual recycled staleness, but a subtle metallic tang that reminded him of his days maintaining copper mines back on Mars. Environment check. Standard parameters, he murmured to his wrist terminal. The holographic display showed normal readings, but 15 years of maintenance work had taught him to trust his instincts over machinery. Jamie guided his drone closer to the ventilation shaft, watching as its cleaning beam caught dust particles in the air. The particles weren't falling quite right. 3 decks above, council representatives from 17 species were gathering for the annual Resource Distribution Summit. Jamie had memorized the schedule, not because he cared about politics, but because different species meant different cleaning protocols. Some delegates left acidic residue, others shed crystalline scales that could clog filter systems. He pressed his hand against the ventilation grate, feeling the subtle vibration patterns. The auxiliary system was running at 103% capacity, just enough to be suspicious, not enough to trigger alarms. Jamie pulled up the maintenance logs on his terminal, cross-referencing them with the station's infrastructure blueprints. "Got you," he whispered, spotting the unauthorized modification. Someone had installed a microscopic dispersal unit in the tertiary filtration system. The device was elegant, almost invisible among the standard components. If he hadn't spent 3 months recalibrating these same filters after the Proximan delegation's last visit, he might have missed it. Jamie's mind raced through options. Standard procedure required reporting security threats through proper channels, but the dispersal unit's timer was counting down. He had minutes, not hours. His cleaning drone hummed nearby, its reservoir filled with the latest nano-cleansing solution, designed to break down biological and chemical contaminants. The solution was technically classified as hazardous material, requiring special handling permits that had taken him weeks to obtain. "Sorry about the paperwork I'm about to create," Jamie told the drone as he began modifications. He extracted the drone's cleaning reservoir, reconfigured its spray parameters, and reversed the polarity of its collection beam. The changes took 3 minutes, too long, but better than waiting for security protocols. The makeshift countermeasure unit looked absurd. A cleaning drone with its internal components exposed, trailing modified connection cables that he'd stripped from his own terminal. Jamie guided it into the ventilation shaft, using his maintenance override codes to bypass the safety protocols. Through his terminal, he watched the drone's progress. The dispersal unit was seconds from activation when his modified cleaner reached it. The nano solution, now supercharged by the reversed collection beam, created a containment field around the device. Chemical analysis scrolled across his screen, confirming his suspicions. The dispersal unit contained a synthetic compound designed to incapacitate most carbon-based life forms. Emergency response teams arrived 12 minutes later, summoned by the security alerts Jamie's modifications had triggered. They found him calmly documenting the incident on his maintenance log, the disabled dispersal unit safely contained within a field of repurposed cleaning solution. The subsequent investigation revealed the full scope of the averted disaster. The compound would have affected 14 of the 17 species attending the summit, causing respiratory failure within minutes. Instead, the only casualty was Jamie's cleaning drone. Its circuits burned out from operating far beyond design specifications. Dr. Six, a Centauri researcher who specialized in xenosociology, watched the security footage with increasing fascination. The maintenance worker had constructed an effective countermeasure from cleaning supplies and basic electronics, displaying a type of adaptive problem-solving that the Centauri scientist had never encountered. Most interesting, K6 noted in their preliminary report, the human did not simply alert authorities or attempt to disable the device directly. Instead, they re-engineered an unrelated piece of equipment into precisely the tool needed. This requires a cognitive framework that views objects not for what they are, but for what they could become. The report was filed, tagged for routine review, No one yet realized it would become one of the most studied documents in Council history. Dr. Kazix's research chamber aboard the Galactic Council station hummed with the soft glow of holographic displays. Each screen showed a different instance of human improvisation, collected from historical archives across settled space. The Zentari researchers' 6 eyes blinked in synchronized patterns of fascination as they added Jamie Santo's incident to the growing database. Display Case Study 47, Kazix commanded. The central hologram shifted to footage from a mining colony on Proxima Beta. Human miners, cut off from supply lines by an asteroid collision, had converted their drilling equipment into makeshift shields against the planet's intense radiation storms. The adaptation had saved 300 lives. Cross-reference with engineering specifications. Kazix's lower arms danced across the control interface while their upper limbs recorded observations. The mineral separation units were never designed to generate electromagnetic fields, yet the humans instinctively understood how to reverse the polarity. Their research assistant, a young Proximan named Ven, entered with another batch of data crystals. "I found more examples, Professor." A human settlement on Ta City used agricultural terraforming equipment to defend against hostile wildlife. They modified soil enrichment devices to create sonic barriers. Kazix's skin rippled with scholarly excitement. Add it to the database. Pattern analysis is showing something remarkable. Humans don't simply repurpose objects. They fundamentally reimagine their core properties. The holographic display updated, showing hundreds of documented cases. Colonists turning atmosphere processors into emergency beacons. Children's toys rewired into translation devices. Medical scanners modified to detect approaching storms. Each instance demonstrated the same underlying principle. Humans saw potential where others saw fixed purpose. Query the Council's historical database. Kazix instructed. Focus on pre-contact Earth records. The results were staggering. Centuries before reaching the stars, humans had displayed this same adaptability. Agricultural tools became weapons, weapons became medical instruments, and medical instruments became tools again. The cycle of adaptation was endless, driven by necessity and imagination. "Professor," Ven interrupted, their crystalline appendages clicking nervously. "The Security Council is requesting your preliminary findings. They're concerned about implications." Kazix understood the Council's anxiety. A species that could turn anything into a tool of defense or offense, challenged established safety protocols. How do you classify the danger level of a civilization that views every object as a potential weapon? Show me the maintenance worker's psychological evaluation, Kazix requested. The screen displayed Jamie Santo's post-incident interview. The human appeared calm, almost puzzled by the attention his actions had received. "I just used what I had," Jamie explained in the recording. The cleaning solution was designed to break down harmful compounds. The drone's collection beam could be reversed to create a containment field. It wasn't complicated. Anyone would have seen the connection. But that was precisely what fascinated Kazix. No other species would have seen the connection. Their research showed that most sentient races viewed objects through the lens of their intended purpose. A cleaning drone cleaned, a medical scanner scanned. The idea of fundamentally changing an object's nature was almost culturally taboo among some council species. "Begin final analysis compilation," Kazix commanded. The chamber's holographic displays consolidated, showing a unified theory of human adaptability. It wasn't just creativity or desperation driving this behavior. It was a fundamentally different way of perceiving reality. Their report would suggest that humans existed in a constant state of potential energy, seeing every object as a collection of properties that could be recombined and repurposed. This wasn't a trait to be feared, but studied and perhaps even emulated. As Kazix prepared to submit their findings, a priority alert flashed across all screens. Reports were coming in from the outer territories. Unknown ships had appeared, using technology that rendered conventional defenses useless. The Council was convening an emergency session. The Zentari researcher looked at their unfinished report about human adaptability. Soon, very soon, this research would prove far more valuable than anyone could have anticipated. The Galactic Council's emergency session chamber had never seen such chaos. Holographic displays showed real-time footage from 17 different systems, each telling the same story. Conventional weapons simply didn't work against the Vorkath ships. Third Fleet reports complete failure of plasma cannon arrays, announced Admiral Selphos, his crystalline form dimming with distress. Energy weapons dissipate before reaching their hulls. Kinetic rounds vanish meters from impact. We've lost contact with outposts in sectors 7 through 12. Dr. Kizix watched from their observer's pod as the Council's military experts proposed and discarded strategies. Their research on human adaptability lay forgotten on a datapad, deemed irrelevant in the face of this unprecedented crisis. The main display showed a Vorkath vessel, sleek, dark, and utterly impervious to the Council's most advanced weaponry. Its hull absorbed or redirected everything thrown at it, while its own weapons sliced through defensive shields as if they didn't exist. We've confirmed their technology operates on principles we've never encountered, reported Chief Science Officer Renla, her tentacles writhing in agitation. Their dampening fields seem to exist partially in subspace, making conventional attacks mathematically impossible. Fresh alerts flashed across the screens. The Vorkath had breached the defenses of Nueva Terra, a human mining colony in the Outer Rim. The Council representatives leaned forward, expecting reports of another swift defeat. Instead, the mining colony's governor appeared on screen, looking puzzled rather than panicked. "We've managed to slow them down," she reported. "Can't take credit for it, though. It was the maintenance crew's idea." The chamber fell silent. Admiral Selphos's crystalline structure flickered with disbelief. "Slow them down? How?" "They noticed the Vorkath ships avoid our industrial waste exhaust," the governor explained. "Our maintenance teams rig the mining platforms to vent plasma waste in controlled patterns, create zones the enemy won't enter. Buys us time to evacuate." Dr. Kzix's skin rippled with revelation. They activated their datapad, quickly cross-referencing the mining colony's improvised defense with their research on human adaptability. "Permission to address the Council," they requested. The Council speaker nodded, desperate for any insight. "The Nueva Terra incident matches observed patterns of human problem-solving," Kizix explained. "They've turned waste management systems into strategic assets. While we seek weapons to penetrate Vorkath defenses, the humans simply observed what the enemy already avoids." Another alert interrupted them. A small research station in the Proxima system reported similar success, using modified atmospheric processors to create localized electromagnetic disturbances. The Vorkath ships wouldn't approach these areas either. "These are not victories," Admiral Exelthos protested. "We cannot defeat an enemy by making them go around our defenses. But we can buy time to understand them," countered Dr. Kizix. "Each avoidance behavior reveals something about their technology. The humans are probing for weaknesses using tools we wouldn't consider weapons." The Council chamber erupted in overlapping discussions. More reports arrived. Colonies and outposts finding creative ways to temporarily thwart Vorkath advances. None of these solutions involved conventional military responses. "The Vorkath expect us to fight with weapons," Kizix continued. "Their defenses are designed to counter known military technology. But how do they defend against a mining platform's waste vents, a terraforming station's atmospheric discharges? They'd prepared for our weapons, not our tools." The Council speaker's voice cut through the chaos. "Dr. Kzix, your research on human adaptability. How quickly could it be converted into practical applications?" Kizix felt their skin flush with academic excitement. "With human advisors to guide implementation, we could begin immediately. They've been teaching us this lesson since first contact. We just weren't ready to learn it." The speaker nodded gravely. "Send word to all Council worlds. We're not just fighting a war of weapons anymore. We're fighting a war of innovation. In the depths of space, the Vorkath advance continued. But for the first time since the crisis began, they were meeting unexpected resistance. Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council's Emergency Advisory Board, surrounded by holographic projections of everyday station equipment. The former marine engineer had traded her utility uniform for formal attire, but grease still stained her fingernails from her latest prototype. The Vorkath's dampening field has a fundamental weakness, she explained, manipulating a hologram of a standard maintenance drone. It's not designed to handle multiple frequencies simultaneously. We've been attacking with single-purpose weapons. Instead, we need to create chaos. Dr. Kizix watched from their observation pod as Sarah demonstrated her first modification. The maintenance drone's cleaning beam shimmered with new purpose, its standard sanitization protocols rewritten to generate overlapping wave patterns. A cleaning beam operates on 16 different frequencies to break down various compounds, Sarah continued. By modifying the oscillation patterns, we can create interference that disrupts their dampening field's ability to adapt. It's like trying to sing multiple songs at once. Eventually, you miss a note. Admiral Zelthos' crystalline form pulsed with skepticism. You suggest we fight an advanced species with cleaning equipment. Sarah smiled, reaching for her next demonstration. This food preservation unit maintains stasis fields to prevent molecular degradation. With minor adjustments, it becomes a localized field generator that can disrupt their sensor arrays. Their ships can't target what they can't properly scan. The chamber filled with murmurs as she activated the modified unit. Nearby sensor displays flickered and distorted, just as they did when Vorkath ships attempted to cloak themselves. Every system on this station operates through field manipulation, Sarah explained. Waste management, life support, even the entertainment holographics. We're surrounded by technology that can be repurposed to create the frequency chaos their dampening fields can't handle. Dr. Kizix activated their data pad, recording observations. The human approaches defense laterally, seeing potential in systems others consider mundane. Fascinating. Sarah's next demonstration involved a modified gravity regulation unit from the hydroponics section. These units typically maintain stable growing environments. But if we reverse the polarity and layer the fields, she activated the device, creating a rippling distortion in the air. We get a gravity wave that their ships have to actively resist, forces them to divert power from other systems. The council representatives leaned forward as Sarah brought out her final prototype. This is my personal favorite, she said, placing what appeared to be a standard communication relay on the presentation table. It's designed to handle thousands of simultaneous transmissions across multiple frequencies. Perfect for creating the kind of electromagnetic chaos that disrupts their targeting systems. How quickly can these modifications be implemented? The council speaker asked. That's the beauty of it, Sarah replied. We're not building new weapons, we're adjusting existing systems. Every station, every ship, every colony already has this equipment. We just need to help them see its potential. Admiral Zelthos raised an objection. The Vorkath will adapt. They'll develop countermeasures. Of course they will, Sarah agreed. But these are just examples. Once people understand the principle, they'll find hundreds of new applications. The Vorkath can't prepare for every possibility because their weakness isn't in any specific frequency. It's in their inability to handle unpredictable combinations. Dr. Kizix's skin rippled with academic excitement as they added notes to their ongoing research. The human engineer wasn't just offering technical solutions. She was introducing a new paradigm of defensive thinking. The council speaker's voice carried across the chamber. How do we proceed? We establish training centers, Sarah proposed. Teach maintenance crews, engineers, even civilian workers how to identify and modify useful systems. Every station, every ship becomes a laboratory for innovation. The Vorkath expect us to fight with weapons. Let's show them how humans fight with creativity. As the council members filed out to implement Sarah's proposals, Dr. Kizix approached her. You've demonstrated exactly what my research suggested. Humans don't see objects for what they are, but for what they could become. Sarah glanced at her grease-stained hands and smiled. We just see problems that need solving. Everything else is just a matter of perspective. The converted cargo bay buzzed with activity as species from across council space gathered around various workstations. Sarah Chen had transformed the space into an improvisational engineering center, where everyday objects became tools of resistance against the Vorkath threat. Think beyond its primary function. She encouraged a Centaurian medical officer who stood puzzling over a diagnostic scanner. What does it actually do at its most basic level? The officer's tentacles wavered uncertainly. It creates targeted energy pulses to analyze tissue structure. And what else could those pulses analyze? Sarah guided, remembering her own first lessons in creative problem-solving during Marine training. The Centaurian's bioluminescent patches brightened suddenly. If we modify the wavelength, we could detect the energy signatures of Vorkath cloaking systems. Across the bay, Dr. Kizix observed the exchange while documenting the learning patterns of different species. Some, like the crystalline Proximan architects, struggled initially with the concept of repurposing technology. Their culture viewed objects as having singular, defined purposes. The structural support beam maintained stability. One Proximan engineer insisted, their crystalline form rigid with conviction. Jamie Santos, now recruited as an instructor, approached their workstation. Sure, that's what it was built for. But how does it maintain stability? Through resonance field harmonics, naturally. And what happens if we tune those harmonics to match Vorkath communication frequencies? The Proximan's crystal lattice shifted as understanding dawned. Within hours, they had developed a way to turn entire sections of station architecture into communication scramblers. Sarah moved between groups, watching barriers break down. Not just technological ones, but cultural and psychological as well. A Centauri biochemist discovered that atmospheric purification systems could generate interference patterns in Vorkath sensor grids. A human maintenance worker showed a Rigelian engineer how to convert waste processing units into shield generators. The difficulty isn't technical, Dr. Kizix noted in their ongoing research. It's conceptual. Species must overcome deeply ingrained patterns of thought about how technology should be used. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a young Aldebaranian, whose species was known for their rigid adherence to protocol, was working with standard food preparation equipment. They noticed that the molecular restructuring used to preserve meals operated on frequencies similar to those used by Vorkath shield systems. If food can be restructured, they reasoned aloud, why not energy fields? The idea spread through the training center like wildfire. Soon, teams were combining technologies in ways never imagined. Medical stasis fields merged with waste reclamation systems to create defensive barriers. Entertainment hologram projectors were modified to generate sensor ghosts that confused Vorkath targeting systems. Each species brings their own perspective. Sarah explained to Dr. Kizix during a brief break. Humans might be good at seeing new uses for things, but everyone here has deep knowledge of their own technology. When you combine that expertise with creative thinking, she gestured to where a Proximan crystal tech specialist and a human plumber were excitedly discussing how to turn atmospheric regulators into weapon platforms. The sight would have been impossible just weeks ago. They're not just learning to repurpose technology, Dr. Kizix observed. They're learning to repurpose their own thinking. The station's alert system suddenly blared. A Vorkath scout ship had been detected nearby. Instead of panic, the training center erupted with purposeful activity. Different species worked together, quickly implementing their innovations. Sarah watched with pride as her students deployed their modified systems. The Vorkath ship encountered not traditional defenses, but a chaotic array of repurposed civilian technology working in unprecedented combinations. The scout ship retreated, its sensors overwhelmed by the improvised defense network. In the celebratory aftermath, Dr. Kizix updated their research notes. The true advantage isn't in the technology itself, but in creating a mindset the enemy cannot predict or counter. Every object, every system, every piece of technology becomes a potential surprise. The Vorkath battle fleet emerged from hyperspace expecting another easy victory at the Centauri mining outpost. Instead, they encountered something entirely different. The space around the outpost rippled with overlapping fields of repurposed energy, creating a defensive web that their sensors couldn't properly analyze. Mining platforms holding position, reported the outpost coordinator, her tentacles steady as she directed the defense, initiating resonance pattern alpha. The platforms, typically used for extracting minerals from asteroid belts, now pulsed with modified extraction beams. Each beam operated on a different frequency, creating a cascading wave of energy that interfered with the Vorkath ship's dampening fields. From the Council command ship, Admiral Excelphos watched with growing amazement. "Report status," he ordered, his crystalline form gleaming with tension. "Vorkath shields experiencing 15% degradation," his sensor officer announced. "Their formations are breaking up. They can't maintain stable flight patterns through the interference fields." Sarah Chen stood at a modified engineering console, coordinating with Dr. Kizix as they monitored the effectiveness of each improvised system. "The mineral extractors are working better than expected," she noted. "The Vorkath can't compensate for the variable frequencies." The Vorkath commander attempted to adjust their strategy, splitting their fleet to attack from multiple vectors. But each approach route had been seeded with different surprises. Repurposed atmospheric processors created pockets of distorted space. Modified communication arrays broadcast sensor jamming signals across spectrum bands the Vorkath had never thought to defend against. "They're trying to adapt," Dr. Kizix observed, their skin rippling with scientific interest. "But their responses are too rigid, too predictable. They expect military solutions, not maintenance equipment turned into defensive systems." The battle's turning point came when the Vorkath attempted to launch their fighter squadrons. The small craft emerged from their carriers only to encounter clouds of reprogrammed maintenance nanites, originally designed to repair hull breaches. The nanites swarmed over their hulls, not damaging them, but creating layers of interference that disrupted their control systems. "Launching second phase," announced the Centauri coordinator. The outpost's massive refineries, which normally processed raw ore, activated modified electromagnetic pulses. Each pulse carried the combined frequencies of a dozen different industrial processes, creating waves of energy that the Vorkath ships couldn't compensate for fast enough. Sarah's console lit up with new data. "Their shield harmonics are destabilizing. They can't maintain coherent defense patterns against so many different types of interference." The Vorkath fleet began to retreat, their perfectly ordered formations dissolving into chaos. Several ships collided with each other as their navigation systems failed under the assault of repurposed industrial equipment. "Should we pursue?" Admiral Excelphos asked, his crystalline structure vibrating with unprecedented excitement. "No need," Sarah replied, studying her readings. "Let them retreat. Let them try to figure out how they were defeated by mining equipment and maintenance systems. Their next attack will be different, but so will our defenses." Dr. Kizix added another note to their ongoing research. "The psychological impact may be as significant as the tactical victory. The Vorkath must now question their assumptions about what constitutes a weapon." The Council command ship's bridge erupted in celebration as the last Vorkath vessel fled the system. But Sarah noticed something even more significant than the victory. Different species were already sharing ideas about new modifications, new combinations of technology that could be used in future encounters. "We've done more than win a battle," she told Dr. Kizix quietly. "We've shown them a new way to think about everything around them. Every tool, every system, every piece of technology they took for granted. They're seeing it all with new eyes." The Centauri researcher's skin rippled in agreement. "Perhaps that is the most powerful weapon humans have given us. Not the ability to turn objects into weapons, but the ability to imagine new possibilities in everything we see." As the celebration continued, reports began arriving from other systems. The innovative defense strategies were spreading, each location adapting the basic principles to their available resources. The Vorkath's perfect record of victories had finally been broken, not by superior firepower, but by superior creativity. The Grand Exchange, once a bustling center of interstellar commerce, had transformed into an innovation hub where species shared their technological adaptations. Holographic displays showed successful defensive modifications from across Council space, each example sparking new ideas among the gathered engineers and technicians. The Proximan crystal lattice arrays were brilliant, a Regelian engineer explained, gesturing to a display showing modified communication towers. We adapted their resonance principles to our atmospheric processors. Now our entire colony's climate control system doubles as a sensor disruption network. Dr. Kizix moved through the crowded exchange hall, documenting the unprecedented collaboration between species. Their research had expanded beyond human adaptability to include how different races interpreted and modified the basic principles. The Aldebaranians developed an interesting variation, Sarah noted, joining the Zentari researcher. She pointed to another display where the traditionally conservative species had transformed their precise agricultural systems into a web of defensive measures. They're using crop monitoring devices to track Vorkath movement patterns. Their whole farming grid has become an early warning system. The exchange's central platform activated, projecting a real-time strategic display of Council space. Vorkath advance forces encountered different challenges at every turn. A mining colony used modified ore processors to generate gravitational distortions. A research station transformed its sensor array into a shield disruption system. Their tactical advantage is diminishing, Admiral Exelphos observed, his crystalline form pulsing with satisfaction. They can't predict what they'll face at each location because every system uses its available resources differently. A sudden alert drew attention to one display. A Vorkath battle group had attacked a small commercial hub, expecting minimal resistance. Instead, they faced a defense network built from modified shopping center systems. Entertainment hologram projectors created sensor ghosts, while climate control units generated interference fields. Look at their approach pattern, Sarah pointed out. They're hesitating, scanning for traditional weapons. They still haven't adapted to our new methods. Dr. Kzix's skin rippled with academic excitement as they updated their research notes. The psychological impact appears significant. The Vorkath military doctrine relies on knowing and countering enemy capabilities. But how do you counter an enemy that turns every piece of civilian infrastructure into an unexpected defense? The exchange's communication channels buzzed with new innovations. A Centaurian medical station had reprogrammed their diagnostic equipment to detect Vorkath cloaking signatures. A human colony used modified water purification systems to create electromagnetic pulses that disrupted enemy targeting systems. We're seeing exponential growth in innovation, Sarah explained to a group of council representatives. Each success inspires new ideas. Every system adds its own perspective to the basic principles we discovered. A junior engineer rushed up to their group, excitement visible in their bioluminescent patterns. The maintenance crews at Junction Station just repurposed their waste recycling system. They're using it to generate false energy signatures that confuse Vorkath targeting computers. The news sparked another round of innovations. If waste management systems could be modified, what about food preservation units? Environmental controls. Every system became a potential resource, waiting to be reimagined. The Vorkath's greatest weakness, Dr. Kizix noted in their research, may be their inability to understand this transformation in thinking. They see a civilian station and prepare for civilian technology. They cannot comprehend that every object, every system, has become part of an adaptive defense network. Sarah watched the strategic display update as another Vorkath advance was turned back by unexpected resistance. We're not just sharing technology, she observed. We're sharing a new way of seeing possibilities. Each species brings their own knowledge, their own perspective on how systems can be modified. The exchange hummed with creative energy as different races collaborated, combining their unique technological understanding with this new approach to innovation. The Vorkath's once unstoppable advance had become a cautious retreat, their forces encountering new and unexpected challenges at every turn. Victory, it seemed, would come not from superior firepower, but from the endless creativity of minds working together to see new potential in the ordinary. The Galactic Council chamber held a different energy now. Where fear and chaos had once reigned, a sense of quiet achievement filled the space. Dr. Kizix stood at the central podium, presenting their final research findings to representatives from across known space. The Vorkath retreat wasn't merely a military victory. They explained, their skin shifting through patterns of academic enthusiasm. It represents a fundamental shift in how we approach problem solving. Every species has contributed to this evolution of thinking. The holographic displays showed a montage of innovations from the conflict. A Proximan colony defending itself with modified atmospheric processors. Centaurian medical stations using diagnostic equipment to track enemy movements. Human maintenance crews turning cleaning systems into defensive networks. Sarah Chen sat among the audience, watching as Dr. Kizix highlighted specific examples of cross-species collaboration. Her original demonstrations had sparked a revolution in thinking that went far beyond military applications. The human concept of adaptable technology has merged with Proximan crystal harmonics, Centauri biological engineering, and Aldebaranian precision systems, Dr. Kizix continued. Each species brought their unique perspective, creating solutions that no single race could have developed alone. The council speaker raised a question that hung in everyone's minds. How do we preserve this innovation now that the immediate threat has passed? Jamie Santos, still wearing his maintenance uniform despite his new status as a strategic advisor, stepped forward. With respect, Speaker, I don't think we need to preserve it. This way of thinking, once understood, doesn't go away. You can't unsee possibilities. To demonstrate his point, Jamie picked up a standard communication device from the podium. This morning, I used this to call my team about a ventilation issue. During the crisis, we modified it to detect Vorkath energy signatures. Now, looking at it, I can see dozens of other potential applications we haven't tried yet. Dr. Kizix's skin rippled in agreement. The research shows this cognitive shift is permanent. Different species express it in different ways, but once they learn to see beyond an object's primary purpose, that perspective becomes natural. The chamber's displays shifted to show new innovations emerging in peaceful applications, medical technologies adapted from defensive modifications, environmental systems improved by concepts developed for protection. The creative thinking that had saved them from the Vorkath was already enhancing everyday life. Perhaps, Sarah suggested, that's the real victory here. Not that we turned everyday objects into weapons, but that we learned to see the potential in everything around us. Admiral Xelthos, his crystalline form glowing with newfound understanding, addressed the chamber. When the humans first showed us how to modify civilian technology, I thought they were teaching us to create weapons. Now I understand they were teaching us to think without limitations. The council speaker called for a vote on the establishment of a new interspecies innovation exchange. The proposal passed unanimously, with every representative recognizing the value of preserving and enhancing these collaborative relationships. As the session concluded, Dr. Kizix made their final research entry. The humans' gift to the council wasn't their ability to turn objects into weapons. It was their ability to see possibility where others saw fixed purpose. In learning this perspective, we haven't become more dangerous. We've become more adaptable, more creative, more alive to the potential in everything around us. Sarah found Jamie after the session, still holding the communication device he'd used to make his point. You know, she said with a smile, I bet we could modify this to translate Proximan crystal harmonics into visual patterns. Jamie grinned, already working on it. The Centauri medical team had some interesting ideas about using it for long-range biological scanning too. Dr. Kizix watched the exchange, their skin displaying patterns of contentment. The Vorkath had retreated to the edges of known space, but their legacy would be unexpected. In trying to conquer the Council, they had instead sparked a renaissance of innovation and collaboration. The future, like every object around them, held infinite possibilities. They just had to learn to see them.